Welcome back to the shop, everyone. I'm working on another episode here with Tiabeanie. When we last left off, I had spilled some fuel from cutting the fuel lines in the cabin, so I was waiting for that to evaporate. Now that that's done, let's get into the metal fabrication work needed to fill these holes here. Okay, so now on this side, we've already kind of shown this in a couple instances, but it's pretty obvious now just how paper thin this rusted metal has gotten. I've been taking a look at this side, and it does feel like it is getting a little thin, but I think if this just gets recoated with some POR, I can actually block all this out and keep it from rusting any further. Same goes for this hole here. There's not too much problems going on. It's actually probably better than this one even. So I'm just going to touch this up with some paint and call it a day. So what we got to focus on is getting rid of pretty much like from there to there. All of this is all cancer rot, like needs to get out of here. So probably what we'll do then is I'll open up this hole, and I may even kind of square this off a little bit just so it's easier to cut all my pieces. So we kind of come up with a patch piece that'll look kind of like, let's see here. I don't want to go too close to here, but I definitely want to get rid of all that crap. So maybe we just do that, and we'll drop out all this. This will be a nice flat piece. So just some 24 gauge steel will patch that over nice. And that just kills all of that and covers up this hole so that I don't have to worry about it in the future. So let's switch over to the time lapse. I'll grab the sawzall and we'll get this cut out. Okay, so now that I've cut this out to our rough shape, I'm going to take, again, our template piece. In this case, I'm just going to hold it up like so, kind of line it up with one edge, and trace out our pattern just with the knife. It may be difficult to see, but I've got all these lines now that I can follow and cut out this bigger piece. So just looking at how this is going to go onto the saw, I'm going to cut kind of around this area just so that I have a smaller piece to work from. But when I visually imagine how this is going to go onto the saw, it's actually going to be really hard for me to make that cut. But luckily this is just 24 gauge steel. So a pair of hand shears and some forearm strength is really all you need to get this started. Sometimes bend one of the sections down a little bit so you can get the shears in there. Okay, and that should now cut far enough out that I can now cut a line to that on the bandsaw. The only thing to keep in mind is I don't want this edge I just cut to catch on the table, so I just kind of rolled it up. I I'm going to just grab my PPE real quick, and we'll cut these out. It's not perfect, but that's what a grinder's for. So I got all three pieces now. So I'm just going to tidy these up a little bit, and we'll go start to mock them up on the car. So I kind of glossed over this because I was just experimenting with it, and it actually worked out really well. So you can see on the original piece here, there's this kind of divot, and that's so that the sealing surface of the cover plate sits in there real nice. And I wanted to kind of try to replicate it a little bit. So I took this piece and kind of just went onto it with the anvil to try to get it to match up. And it's not 100% perfect, but I really like how that came out. So if we just kind of go over what I did here real quick. We're going to take a walk over to the anvil. And so I used my cross peen hammer, primarily the cross peen part itself, and I worked right into this groove in the anvil, and I just took my hammer here. It's hard to do it while I'm holding the phone, but I basically struck it right here using this kind of curvature. And it obviously kind of deflected, and I spent a little while just massaging it and getting it back flat again. But it actually worked out really well, and I'm kind of happy with how that turned out. So I'm now going to grind this edge and get it to line up with the cavity in the car, because it doesn't quite line up. But then that'll be one of the first pieces done. If I come back around here. And I line everything up, you can see it mostly works. Oops, I just dropped it. So yeah, I'm just going to put the tripod back up, get this on a time lapse, and we'll get that ground to fit. Alright, so at the end there you saw me going in with a wire brush, and actually also this guy here. Both are serving as kind of a paint stripper to knock back all this paint that's up here. This is going to give me nice bare metal to weld to, which is actually really the next step. So I'm going to go get the welder set up, and then we'll tack these pieces in. Alright. Ooh. Safety third, am I right? Alright, so we're about ready to start welding. I'm going to be using MIG here. I just have a setup 030 mild steel wire. Really should be 025, but I have the 030. 25 would be better for the thin stuff. I just did a couple of tests to see where my settings are at, and I might be a touch on the hot side right now. This is my test, or this is the filler piece that we were talking about earlier. I've just taken a couple of neodymium magnets here and kind of put them in these 3 spots to hold it in place. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to give it a couple tacks and get this thing held in place, and then we'll start to stitch it all in. So I'm going to switch over to the time lapse and we'll get that going. Man, so the Subaru factory sheet metal's really thin stuff. So I've now gone and tacked along the perimeter of this first piece. So this is now in place where it needs to be. I had a little bit of an event here. I definitely burned through. The rust has made this section super thin. So I had to build up along this edge of just bead so that I could fill back in and let this metal down here still be cold so it would actually bridge back in. That was a little hairy, but I recovered it. So from here, the objective is basically just to fill in all these little gaps along the edge, and I'm going to do it in a pattern that kind of dissipates the heat as much as possible. So I'm going to be jumping around a whole bunch to keep it from warping too much. Okay, that actually went a lot better going around the perimeter. I'm pretty sure that's going to be watertight as is. I am going to take a flap disc and just hit all that, just to make sure I don't see any like pinholes or anything. The other thing to do would be check down on the underside. But it's definitely been a long day out here in the shop, so you know, I'm going to go get some burgers and relax for a little bit. So I guess we'll get to our other patches in our next episode. So until then, like, share, subscribe, and get that notification button pressed so you can catch when the next episode airs. I'll catch you guys later.